Order. It is still July the 27th. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're back in session Commissioners Court is back in session in a budget workshop. And I guess the best place to start is the overall view of what we've got. Let me talk about procedure first. I think a lot of you probably are not familiar with this procedure. It is my duty as the county judge to make a recommended budget to the court. The court can accept that recommendation, modify the recommendation, or refuse it, come up with their own budget. Procedurally, that's what we're looking at here. And we start with my recommended budget. My recommended budget, I mentioned this morning, technically was due to be filed tomorrow. It's not ready. So we're working on trying to get something ready for recommendations. Anything we talk about here today is not final because it's all subject to change, whether I change the recommendation or whether the court changes my recommendation for me. So let me kind of start with the big picture, and we'll go up maybe 35,000 feet, take a look at the big picture, and then try to come back down and focus on a few critical areas. First of all, we're talking about expenses and revenues. And let's start with the revenues. What I have projected so far is $34 million in property tax revenue and approximately $20 million in non-tax revenue, for a total of revenues of $54 million. I'm projecting more expenses than that. This is the time for me to take a little footnote and explain to you what we do about budget culture. I've alluded to this in the past, but it is something that I've learned to live with. I don't like it, but I have to live with it. And it has to do with disclosed and undisclosed contingency funds. In my budget, you will find a disclosed contingency fund, and we'll talk about that. I'm telling you exactly how much money that I propose that we set aside for contingencies. Now, having said that, I do not provide individual contingencies for each department or office. And what we have learned historically, and I'm talking about this is you know, when I came into office, I asked about why we did it this way, and they said because we always have done it this way. So I'm not defending the propriety or effectiveness of it or efficaciousness of it, but it is nonetheless reality. And that is that each department head and each elected official that prepares the budget and has input into ENCODE that we assemble all this information to come up with this projection. There are ways that department heads and elected officials protect themselves in projecting sometimes what I call the undisclosed contingency. What's in there that I don't know. And sometimes that's just a calculated risk. You know, you look at it and say, is that really going to happen this year? Do I need to put it in the budget for this year? Or do you look at it every year and say, just in case that happens, I want to have the funds in my budget? Those usually are never disclosed, rarely known, and by the end of the budget year, just like we're coming up on the end of the 25-26 fiscal year, we discover what is not spent. When we learn what's not spent, and we can do a pretty reasonable projection as well what is needed at the end of this fiscal year, which would be the end of September. And we can project the surplus that we're going to have in the budget. And those are real dollars. They're in the budget. They've been allotted and spoken for, but they're unspent because whatever contingency it was that contemplated did not occur, or if it occurred, not at that expense, not at that rate. And so every year we had this unidentified surplus that was not really, we couldn't really figure out what it was. This goes back, Don and I have been doing this too long, but long enough to know that, and Commissioner Ballou was probably the one that came up with the best phrase for it, and what he called budget culture. And it's just part of our budget culture. And so when you look at this difference between $62 million in expenses and $54 million in income, part of what is included in that is this budget culture, because we know not all the funds that get budgeted will get spent. Now, some of the funds in this budget provide for capital outlays. That means that we're spending money for capital improvements of one kind or another. There's about $900,000 in straight purchase for the capital budget. And when you purchase, I look at it from 2 points of view. One, you can buy it outright. We do that frequently. Some of the things we buy are pretty expensive, and we may or may not want to pay all of it up front. Another thing we can do is we can have leases, and then one the technique that I've taken to is sometimes we just take some of these smaller capital outlays, aggregate them together, borrow the money from our lender, and pay for it that way, and then pay it back over time. It's an amortized debt. So we take some expenses, aggregate them, borrow the money, and then pay it back on a regular installment payment of some sort. And those show up in this budget also, as well as the leases. This particular year, we're working on some of the last of our ARPA funds. Those were funds that were hotly contested, if you'll remember, at the beginning, that have been used very wisely. In fact, without those funds, I don't think we'd have the communication system that we have with the Sheriff's Office that definitely saved lives and saved property damage, being able to have that type of communication system. And it was an investment well spent. We used the ARPA funds to do that because it was one of the items that appeared to be, I won't say impossible, but very difficult for the federal government to claw back. And we were concerned about the clawback provisions. We didn't want to take the government money, spend the government money, then have them say that what we spent it for was not the appropriate thing to spend the money that they gave us, and then claw it back and have us repay them. So we tried to avoid that, and by purchasing all of that communication system in one department and having it all signed off on up front proved to be a wise thing to do. I have included in my proposed budget, we'll talk about the numbers here in a minute, but I've included in my proposed budget an increase. Let me just kind of stop. In this first draft of my proposed budget, okay? I intend to change it. That's one of the reasons that we're slow to complete this budget. I propose to change that, but I have included a wage adjustment, and for those of you that are unfamiliar with our terminology, we do not use the word COLA, the acronym COLA, cost of living adjustment, because we never adjusted to the cost of living. Not a single time I've been here have we adjusted to what the actual cost of living was. So rather than be hypocritical and call it a COLA and wink and pretend that it is, I tried to get honest about it and say this is just a wage adjustment. And you'll notice that we have schedules anywhere from 1% up to 3%, just so we can see what it's going to cost us to do. In this budget, I put in an initial 2.5% wage adjustment. In this proposed budget, and again, I'm proposing to change that, but I want that disclaimer up front so that you know I have another idea. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's always the issue of new hires, and I've learned to work with the sheriff and not against the sheriff. He has a plan, and that plan includes a new patrol deputy every year. It took us a couple of sessions to figure that out, but I figured it out. And so he builds that into his budget. And there's not anything wrong with that. We just got to figure out how to pay for it. Okay? This year, a grant opportunity came along. I discussed it a little bit in the last workshop. But this grant opportunity, and we applied for this grant. It was a short fuse grant application process. It was with, which federal?
It's called the Biden grant.
The Bi-
There's an acronym for it.
The Biden grant. Okay. Anyway, it's for law enforcement, and it relates to border enforcement. And there are very few counties in the country that have applied for this grant, and there's billions of dollars sitting there waiting to be granted to a deserving applicant, and no one's doing it. And the sheriff came to me with his advisors, and we had a very candid conversation around the round table in my office about this grant opportunity, but it didn't coincide with our budget schedule. The budget schedule is, we've already blown the schedule, as you know, but the schedule is that we try to get the budget, recommended budget to the court for review and approval by the end of July. And then normally we spend the month of August working on tax rate. In this case, we're kind of crowding each other. I'm extending out the budget because of the flood emergency and disaster declaration to get it up into mid-August. And we're simultaneously trying to work on our tax rate in response to that. But this opportunity that was presented, I think there's three stages, and it's not all at once, but it is a significant grant. We're talking about what, as many as, what, a half a dozen?
Yes, sir.
Patrolmen. That is a significant increase in our capacity to protect the citizens of Kerr County. But there's this timing glitch, and the sheriff and I looked at one another, nodded, and agreed we'd take the risk. Rather than trying to put this in the budget, because patrolmen are not cheap. They're worth it, but they're not cheap. And when you put them in the budget, you got to find some way to raise the money to pay them. And the most customary way is to raise the tax rates. And I don't want to belabor the point, but in the 7 years that I've been in this job, we have not raised the tax rate one time, not once. My first year, when I was learning, and we didn't have an auditor at the time, the first assistant and I got a budget out with no tax rate, at the same rate it was the year before, and kind of dodged the bullet. And then every year after that, we have reduced it to the no new tax revenue rate. In compliance with the legislative mandate that we got, that's what they wanted us to do, so we complied with that. And that has been true for the last 6 years. With this grant opportunity, it's an opportunity for us to continue that tradition. And we'll know a little bit later in August where we stand on step number one, because it is a three-step process to get all of it. But that has been factored into my budget by not including the regular deputy that he would ask for, and that would be a new hire. And in this budget, I have not included hiring for any new positions. I'm not saying that they might not be needed. I'm just saying that I don't think we have the financial ability to service that at this time. So then talked a little bit about what I propose to put in the budget with regard to the wage adjustment response, and that has to do with steps and grades. And not to beat that horse to death, but our compensation system, we have found that because if we use an across-the-board wage adjustment increase, whether it's 1%, 2.5% that I have built into this proposal, or whatever it is, ultimately, the people who benefit the most from that are the top wage earners, because they have bigger numbers, and the percentage of that number means they get paid more. In the salary study that was performed by, what's Mr. Whirling's first name? I forget. Huh? Steve Whirling. And by the way, we've checked Steve Whirling out. He's done this for many public entities. and I got a sterling representation, recommendation for him from ACOG, who I've served on that board for a number of years myself. And he did a salary study last year that we were unable to address. We were just in the middle of crisis times, not that we're not now, but we were back then. I didn't have time to really wrestle with his proposal on the salary study. This year, what I'm trying to do is to incorporate that salary study into the budget. And what that's going to do is more fairly represent a living wage for our employees. And it's broken down into quartiles, first, second, third, and fourth. And our goal is to try to get everyone up into at least the second quartile, so that they're, if you think about high, low, and medium, I try to get them in the medium salary range for their peers in the workplace. And but that's one of the blanks that I've left in this, and just put this placeholder number that I was telling you about. That placeholder number is there, so we can figure out what to do about the salary situation and the wage adjustment. And that number that I've got place held in the budget is $657,000. The last thing that I'll share with you before we get into the numbers, and y'all don't have the paperwork that we have, which make it a little bit more difficult, but it's all being recorded, so you can go back and check it. But the recommendation from TAC and the representation from state authorities, and I'll leave it vague and just say state authorities, is that we try to keep 3 months worth of funds in our fund balance to be able to fund the government for 3 months if something happens. And so that's 25%. And so to those of us that work on budget, 25% is kind of the goal. We look at trying to have 25%. We've been successful in years past at being able to maintain a fund balance a little bit larger than that, simply because of the budget culture, because the money didn't get spent. So we kept it in the bank. And then last year, we took a little over $12.5 million of that and put it into the budget that we took out of the fund balance, because we had accumulated that budget culture money to try to offset what would have been the deficit in the budget, in order for us to be able to adopt the no new revenue rate. So that's our goal, is to try to keep 25% there. So one of the things that we always have when you see these spreadsheets, at the very last column, at the very bottom, it tells you what that percentage is. And in this one, what we're looking at is right at the 25%. If we go on the basis of the, and so this has 25.69%. That's where we have it, even with the placeholder in there to adopt the salary study rate wages. So that's the overview of the one page here that has all the numbers on it that we try to put in it. And then we'll go in talking about some of the component parts. What I wanted to do was make you aware of some of the things that I've included and some of the things that I have not included. So, past that, let's talk about new positions. I didn't put new positions in there. And but for the grant opportunity, we would have had to put some new positions in there. But with the grant opportunity, we have successfully avoided that thus far in the recommendation. Then we get to special request. And there are different things that come from different folks. When you talk about special requests, that comes out of the HR department. When I'm talking about capital outlay, which we'll talk about in a minute, that comes from the accounting, the auditor. And to make sure that everybody remembers something that I've said several times, that I don't know how many people really think about what I'm saying, but the auditor is hired by the district judges on behalf of the state of Texas to monitor what we do with the money, how we spend it, and how we budget it. And she reports back to the district judges. She does not report to us. She is, for all practical purposes, the watchdog that makes sure that we spend the money wisely and that we spend the money appropriately. And so that office deals with the capital outlays, while special requests come from HR. New positions also, but and then they didn't lynch me when I told them we weren't going to do any new positions. But the only reason we're able to do that is because of that grant opportunity. And then, so those are the moving parts to the budget. Now, with regard to capital outlays, I'm looking, trying to figure what I can say about that. I have not recommended all the recommended or proposed capital outlays. For example, with regard to the jail, this is a $10,000 item. And I forget what that is, Sheriff, the $37,000 one?
What does it say?
That's the Durango, up one above.
Durango,
Rob, the
oh, the one above,
10,000.
operating equipment replacements?
SCAP,
And I was representing.
SCA 8.
Yeah, that's why I was using SCAP money for that.
Yeah, and that's what I recommended here in my budget, is to recommend that that be paid out of the SCAP fund. I can't tell you exactly what SCAP is. He can, and he manages it well, but he does have other revenues available to cover some of these costs, and that was one of them that I recommended. Another one that I had issues about, or several of them, in Road and Bridge. One had to do with a $650,000 improvement out at Cave Springs, which is that in Cypress Springs? I think that's where that
Precinct
is.
4.
Precinct 4. That's road and bridge work in a very high-class neighborhood. Then we had, Road and Bridge had another recommendation. And this is something that we know is inevitable, and we need to decide, are we going to try to fund it now? Are we going to try to do it in installments? What do we want to do about it? And that's repaving the parking lot at Hill Country Youth Event Center. And that was a $187,000 plus proposal that I did not recommend at this point. It's going to have to be done, probably going to have to do it in stages, maybe over 4 years, or I don't know what we're going to be able to do. But I didn't recommend that at this time. And then another one that's been brought to my attention is the Flat Rock Park road, which is gone again.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
I drove it the other day, had to meet a gentleman down there at the boat ramp, and I drove it. We just did a heck of a job paving it last year.
Yeah, I know it.
It looked great, now it's gone. And if y'all been down there, it makes a big circle, the bottom portion. The portion closest to the road up the hill, there's spots that are washed out. It's not a total redo. Down below is pretty much a total redo. And I mentioned it to Kelly the other day, and I said, well, you know, why don't we just make that a caliche road rather than repaving it, save a few bucks that way? And she said, oh, we'd love that because we don't have any place to train our new people on running a maintainer and running a blade and stuff. And said the proximity would be great. Then Donnie Houghton said, you know, probably the road closest that wasn't completely ruined, probably leave that leads to the dog park and stuff, re-chip seal it, but then maybe the caliche. So she's not here, I don't know what that would cost, but you know, it's basically $9,600. I don't know, it might be my recommendation, just leave it in there, Judge, and it, because it will take some money just for a caliche as well, plus the redo on that one road that's not totally demolished.
But that's that's a good example of one of the things that's in play. We're trying to figure out what to do, what's the best thing.
And Judge, to go back, the Hill Country Youth Exhibition Center,
Yes?
we've got that money from Spectrum that they received, and that's the reason we're removing that from this budget. Remember, we collected it, we got that.
I remember
money-
the funds,
Right,
Right.
and they will be using that to pay for this.
so we take that, the whole
So-
$187,000 out of the budget.
Take
Well,
the
we're saying it'd probably get done
Right,
regardless.
So I'll
We'll
put
use
zero
our
in the budget
spectrum
because we're gonna
funds
use
for
the
that.
funds that we earned from Tatum for the 25 flood.
right.
Good.
Take it off the backs of the taxpayer.
Now, let me kind of back up a little bit and give you an idea of some of the things that I try to do in the budget. Let's talk about IT. IT has major capital expenditure requests this year. And we've got old servers that need to be replaced, and there's nothing inexpensive about that. It's about $750,000. And so I look at, do I purchase? Do I lease? Do I finance? I put that one in the budget to go ahead and pay for outright. I've got other things in the budget that I lease, that I propose to be leased. That would include the car equipment for JP precinct, Constable Precinct 3. I'm putting these things together to be financed, okay, or to be leased. KCSO, I've got in there, I got another $430,000 on the lease, which is the enterprise lease for the vehicles. And I've got another $25,000 for the ag extension over there that I put in there. Then as we move through the other projects, one of the big ones is for road and bridge, and this is for equipment. And I've got in here 2 patch trucks, a JD tractor, John Deere I guess, and a JD shredder, 3 dump trucks, Baroshi broom, motor grader, and a wheel loader. And those are all items that are in the budget, but I put them in there as debt. So we intend to borrow. We're going to take that, that's $1,660,000 in there. We're going to take that along with some of these other things, and we're going to go to our lender to borrow the money at a low interest rate loan and pay it back over time. These are installment payments, basically what that comes down to. And so those are items that we have in the capital outlay. We have in the capital outlay, one of the other things that I have to address are the balance of those ARPA funds. And we're going to spend the last of the ARPA funds this year. And that is for a total of $1,547,000 for the last ARPA funds that we have. And those are figured into the budget for the communication system and grant works. So that's kind of an overview of that.
Is road recovery, is that from last year, or is that new for what you're guesstimating? in
That's the
this year?
25.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We haven't got 26 into it yet.
That's not fair.
Well,
Yeah, that's fine.
just trying to be realistic.
No, I know, I'm asking, that's fine.
Okay. So that's kind of the overview of what I've done in my proposal. With regard to the special request, we talked about those a little bit last time. I've made this representation to the people that are affected by the recommendations that I have made to date, okay? And that is that if the recommendations that I've made in response to the special request are greater than what's in the salary study that I'm trying to incorporate into the budget, then we'll go with the greater rate, because there's been that employee's expectation, because I've already announced what I was recommending. And if it's less, then we'll give them the higher rate of what's in the salary study. And so what we started off with last time was we had in the sheriff's office, we had 2 administrative recommendations, one for an executive assistant and another one for the dispatcher. And I was recommending that the administrative assistant That be dealt with some of the sheriff's other funds that he has available to try to do that, so we don't build into a grade and step. And with regard to the dispatcher, they were requests for, I'm looking here, 5 grades and, 5 grades. And a grade translates into what, about $6,000? Something like that. I think a step is about 3. And steps are usually about half of a grade, ballpark. What I recommended there was 2 grades and 2 steps. And that's because that position, I think, has been underpaid. And I don't say this in a negative way, Sheriff, but well used, maybe not overused, but definitely during the 2025 flood. I'm telling you, they were a lifesaver. Truly, truly a lifesaver. And it's time to bring them up to competitive rates in market rates. Then I looked at, and then you've got an SB 22 in there.
Yes, sir.
We talked about that a little bit this morning. The one where we have to put the clause in there that they get to decide how to spend the money. We can't tell them what to do with it. So his SB 22 in there, he's spending the money that the legislature has given him, and I can't mess with it. I don't. I respect it. And so that request was included in my budget. Then we get to IT. I struggle with this one because I wish I could do more. I really do. I can't tell you how improved our IT department is. We have an IT department that is the envy of local governments right there. And that is attributable to Corey's leadership. And I haven't forgotten when he came and applied and did his interview, and we asked him how much he wanted to be paid, and he told us. And within a month, he realized that he had undersold himself and came back and talked to us again. And I believe somebody at this table said, well, you signed a contract to do it for the original rate, so just stay at the original rate.
I think I resemble that.
I think you do resemble that remark, but and there was nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's fair. And I will tell you that Corey swallowed hard, accepted it, owned up to his responsibility for having signed to do it at that rate, and did it. And I have the utmost respect for that. I truly do. And then we get into the performance. Whew, off the charts. And he asked for a raise, and I recommend every penny he asked for. That's what I put in there. Now, he's got a great staff, and has built a staff. A staff that is also becoming the envy of local governments in the area. And so I'm trying to accommodate that, while at the same time trying to balance how much money do we have to spend to do this, but that's a department that needs to be recognized. And so, for example, and these go by positions, they don't have names on them. We're not going to talk about names in open court like this, but I'm recommending that, see, Corey asked for just a shade under $6,000, $5,943, I think. And I'm approving that. I'm putting that in my recommended budget. His number 2, he asked for a grade and 2 steps, and I'm recommending the 2 steps. Is what I've recommended on that, which be an increase of a little over $3,600 per year. Next down, he had one that he was recommending 4 grades, and 4 grades and 4 steps. And truthfully, he's worth every penny. Truly is. I'm not going to give you his name, but he's worth it. And I'm recommending 4 steps, and that's going to be a little over, that's $5,531. To at least begin to try to get him up to market rate. Then there's, two others after that. I think both of them were recommended 2 grades and 2 steps, and I'm recommending 2 steps for each of them. And those are compromise figures for me. I'm trying to recognize the accomplishment and the quality, and hopefully entice them to stay with us, work with us. We're trying to get there. And we're trying to get this salary study in place so that they know what to expect and plan on for their future.
Judge, I guess that's my question. How does the ask compare to the salary survey data that you've been looking at?
I haven't gone back to double check those, but I think they're competitive. If anything, maybe a little low.
So I can, if I may comment on that a little bit, to your question, the ask actually came in right below each of the separate salary study numbers. So my ask didn't quite get to the salary study, it's a little bit below that, but if I may comment on the reason for the grade changes was to more closely match.
Say that again, more what?
You might start over because they're on camera, so you can be on camera.
Okay, so the initial ask for this year was to try and get to the salary study. And my numbers actually come in right below it, actually, honestly. And that's, I'm trying to be fair and realistic at the same time for my guys. But also for the 2 grade changes requests, that was more of a reason to more accurately identify their roles and responsibilities based on those positions. So that's why the grade changes was the ask.
Well, I think we may be driving down different roads going to the same place.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get there.
Yes, sir.
And what I represented to you, and I stand by, is that anyone that I have disclosed publicly what my recommendations were before we get to the salary study. If the salary study is greater than what I recommended, we'll go with the salary study for it.
I appreciate that.
And because that's the competitive thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to get competitive with our other governmental entities. If you'd asked for a little bit more, I'd have gone with it too.
Next year.
But you're a very vital part of this team, and we're trying to keep you active. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, there was a part-time request for JP Precinct 4. I approved that. That's going to be included in my recommended budget. I think you're going to have a lot of work getting things organized in Precinct 4. but,
Could be.
That's just my humble opinion. And then there was, I got asked a lot of questions about this. The tax assessor collector, Bob Reeves, and I think he was trying to be fair with us. I honestly do. And he asked for a 1-step increase in his entire staff. And I was asked why, because he asked for it. And I didn't bother to go rattle the cages and bang on the doors of all the other department heads and officials when I came to the conclusion that what I really wanted to recommend was that salary study. And so, rather than go shake those trees,
Okay.
I'm going to go with the recommended salary study, which you will find this is going to be very competitive.
Okay. It was the fairness that kind of disturbed me. Only one department totally across the boards when the guidance that I remember Commissioner Harris giving and a few others echoed it was don't ask. Is that right? For salary. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything. I'm just saying, I didn't see this as necessarily being fair to other departments that could have made and probably would have made very similar requests had they thought it was acceptable to do so. Just my 2 cents.
Well, and this was made, and I tried to respond to it
Okay.
fairly. But all of this will be subsumed if we go ahead and adopt the whirling salary study. Now, in terms of special requests, the last ones that were made were the Veteran Services offices, and we went over this, within the last 4 or 5 months,
Mhm.
and tried to right-size that back then. Felt comfortable with the decisions that we made a few months ago. And we'll take a look at that next go around. So those are the special requests which go in here. And then we get to the wage adjustments. And I put a 2.5% in here. And I want to make sure that everybody understands the amount of money that we're talking about and how this works. 1%, and remember, I'm a believer that the wage adjustment is not fair to all concerned. Okay. That said, 1% would be an estimated increase of wages of $210,375, and then we have the roll-up cost, which is the retirement cost, benefits cost, which we always average at about 25%, and that's been pretty accurate year after year. So that would cost the county $263,000 ballpark, within a couple $100. And that's for 1%. In the budget, I put in 2.5%, which is that $657,000 number that we talked about earlier. That's what that total comes to. And what I have decided to do, rather than try to do the wage adjustment, I want to incorporate and put in the budget salary, the budget study for that placeholder number of 257. That's what I'm trying to do. So instead of everybody getting 2.5% across the board, we take and we try to adjust each individual employee per the studied guidelines from Stephen Worley, and keep that in the budget. And what I'm trying to do, and this may sound a little nostalgic, but to leave a legacy here that we're going to look at our employees individually. And these salary studies are good for about 2 years. This is what I think is the last real effective year of this salary study, but it's a start. And if we do this, it's going to make the budgeting process a whole lot more straightforward and a whole lot simpler every year if you take a look at it to see who deserves a raise and who doesn't. And not just put them in a class and say, you're grade 14, you're grade 16, this is what you get. And the steps are more individualized.
So, Judge, I agree with everything you've said, but when you're looking at that Whirling study, we're not talking about implementing that across the board for every employee.
I think he is.
Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying within the limits of the ones that have applied for the special request?
I was doing it across the board.
Yeah, that's what it should be done.
That's the 657.
Is that where that 658,000?
No.
The 657 is an extrapolated number, okay? That's the 2.5% that I had originally included in my budget as a recommendation. And what I'm doing on that is waffling, okay? I'm admitting what I'm doing here. I'm waffling a little bit. So I prefer to take a look at this and do it individually and try to address each one of these employees individually. And I'm looking back there at my HR director and her assistant. I'm saying this right, aren't I? And so, in response to, well, Bob asked for a step, and so Bob got a step, but Nadine didn't ask for a step. And I've talked to Nadine.
Yes, sir.
You're back there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And she told me, if I'd have known you'd given me a step, I'd ask for it.
Well, see?
Everybody would,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, what I'm trying to do is to be fair to everyone and do it all at one time.
Right.
And absorb this pain, if you will, this financial pain this year and set in motion precedent for the future. That's what I'm trying to do with that. And if you don't do it, you don't do it. But it's not up to me. I just make the recommendations. It's up to this court and what this court decides.
I support your approach. I like what you're trying to do, but until I see the number, what I would suggest is you set it up in a way that we can still play with what amounts to
2.5.
2.5 to 3,
Well, I'm looking at my HR department back there because I know they've got good numbers crunchers.
If I may, I think that is the plan that we kind of discussed when we all got together, is what you said. We're gonna take the 657,000 and do the best we can, but it will be a system-wide, moving everybody to a certain point. I know
Yeah.
that in there even, if you're in a certain spot with the wage adjustment, you're making more than what the salary study shows, you may only get a 1% raise.
Yep.
If you're making even more than that, you may only get the $500, I think
Yep.
is roughly what we were looking at, the highest.
And I'm on that page with you. My only concern is, that strictly speaking, if you followed that salary study to a T, we might find that the total budget required is 5%.
And so we.
And that would
No.
be problematic. I'm just saying.
This is the number. This is the number that I've plugged in, the placeholder number, Rich.
Okay.
So that number.
But I thought it wasn't based on the
It's
salary
not.
survey.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's just the
The
number.
placeholder.
I know.
It's the placeholder number. And so what Tanya's sharing with you is, what our approach would be is to try to go through and allocate, even we have to, a little bit less per employee, whatever it comes down to, but try to get to something that's more equitable and only spend that amount of money.
Okay.
The 657.
That's where I was
That-
going. That was
yeah.
my
We're not
concern.
gonna spend any more money than that.
Okay.
Because
As
to
long as
get
it's
to,
not
to
more.
get to that complete report, it's gonna take about $1 million.
I don't know.
And that's what I was
I don't know
concerned
what-
That's,
with.
that's probably right.
Yeah.
And if I may, I think to me, also, Judge, part of that's a start on where this study goes. And so we're moving to where we do make the wage that is like in the salary study, okay? But we won't get there in 1 year.
Yep.
One of the other part that I kind of like about it, it takes away the steps. So we may have grades, but there's no more steps. So it will make, the position schedule is real easy. The goal that we're shooting for is that if you're a clerk in the, I'm gonna pick on Nadine because she's here in the county clerk's office, clerks across the board make X amount. That's what every clerk in there is going to make. It's gonna simplify payroll, it's gonna simplify a whole lot. But a second step of putting that in, right now, we give a 2.5% adjustment to everybody pretty much after 3 years. I know starting off it's a little bit. We want to move that to where every year, instead of doing that, that's automatic. It doesn't matter what type of job you do. You're in here long enough, you're gonna get that percentage raise. We would like to see it move to a 1% a year merit increase for each individual. So if you've got somebody making $10,000 a year, the most you could give that person is 1% of that every single year. So there, and that's a merit. And you can give a portion of the 1%. So it lets the elected official at least have some way of rewarding their high performers. So that would be a switch. It would be 3%, over 3 years instead of 2.5% over 3 years. Those are the two things to me that in reading the study that spoke to me, I guess.
And as complicated as that sounds, it's a whole lot less complicated than what we have.
Oh,
I
gosh,
think that's
yes.
true.
And for those of you that haven't learned it, God help you.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And I was an economics major, pretty good with numbers. It took me a while to figure all this stuff out. It's a complicated system, and this is much more streamlined.
Judge, I have a question on if this compounds, for instance, this is about a 2.4% increase, which is all of the tax assessor office. It's a one step. It equals about 2.4% increase, that one step, average per person. Now, with this allotment, if you will, this 2.5% allotment that you would like to make individually per person, right? You want to have the discretion to do this. Does this automatically compound on with any additions for the special requests as well? Or does that give you the opportunity to look to it and go, look, they're already getting a special request, one-step increase of 2.4%?
That's not the intent.
Okay.
Let me explain what the intent is. the $657,000 number is just a number. This is how we came up with the number.
A working pool.
Just so, and because what I wanted to know from working with what I call my smart ladies to give me this information is what would it have cost if we just gave a straight wage adjustment? And as I suggested 2.5%, so they came up with this, so I could see what it was, and I've used that as the placeholder number. That number does not have to be exhaustive. I don't know what this court's going to do, but I'm just saying that that's the recommendation. It's not the whole recommendation, but it is the start. And so what we're really trying to do is to come up with a starting number. The idea would be that every couple of years, we get a salary study, and we see where everyone is. And if they've reached, if they're continuously just in the mid-range of employment, then they would probably stay there with some minor adjustments, because that's where the salary study is, because we're trying to find out what is the market rate here. If they're below, then it would be recommended more for the ones that are low. So that this is not a compounding across the board.
Okay.
This is meant to be individualized. That's the purpose of it. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why the heck did I do this? Well, one, we paid for a salary study, we got it, I thought it was particularly good, and we ignored it because we were in the middle of a crisis. And so I wanted to blow the dust off of it this year and see if we didn't have a running chance at trying to do what I think is the right thing to do for our employees. Now, you may ask yourself, why am I championing the employees? Because you can't run county government without them. And unlike municipalities that can choose to be in existence or not in existence, counties are part of the Texas Constitution, and we are. And we have funded and unfunded mandates. We've got the SB 22, which helps fund the department's needs, the office's needs, and then we have those that are not funded. And counties are at a distinct disadvantage with our competitors. And they are much more flexible and can respond to market conditions much more quickly than we can. And one of the things that I've come to the conclusion as a 50-plus year lawyer that specialized in real estate transactions and litigation, the price of dirt in Kerr County is more expensive than the price of dirt in just about anywhere you're going to find in this whole part of the country. And what that means, and you've heard me talk about existential threats to the county. And when I talk about existential, I mean survival, existence. What happens to us if we can't do this? What happens if we can't perform the functions of government that are mandated by the Constitution? What happens if we can't fund the requirements that the legislature puts on us to be able to perform, that we're supposed to be able to provide? If you look at where our employee base comes from, and I don't have the birthday card list. I think HR has the birthday card list. Y'all know we send out birthday cards, right? Just a little thing we do, little personal notes from all five of us that we send to everybody, every employee.
And they love them.
And they're kind of cornball, but they're handwritten. We write little notes on there.
Huh? Mine aren't cornball.
Yeah, they are.
I've seen yours.
We've all seen each other's. It depends on who gets it first. But I've turned these cards over. I made an anecdotal study to see where the employees live. And believe it or not, over 50% of the employees' mailing address are outside Kerr County. They can't even afford to live here. And I've been here, adding it up this morning, driving in. 33 years I've lived in Kerr. And I've gotten a pretty good feel for it. And property values here are high because everybody wants to live here, supply and demand. It's a beautiful place. If you're driving in either from the east or west, it really doesn't matter. You're looking out over a mountain range in a valley. And we've got that crystal clear Guadalupe River flowing through the middle of it. Everybody wants to live here. And you think about what we paid for our properties. The people that we're hiring can't afford to live here. We don't have the public housing that we should. We don't have the rental housing that we should. We don't. And so they live in Bandera. They live in Fredericksburg. They live in one of these towns and commute in. And if we don't take care of them, if we're not competitive in being able to provide a living wage for those people, then we're not going to have employees to do the jobs that we have. And because the county is at the bottom of the totem pole locally, we're going to be the first ones that start losing employees. And what do we do when we can't replace them? And I don't want to single out Kelly and Road and Bridge, but we've had open positions in Road and Bridge now for how many years, Don? 4 or 5 years?
Down like 2 crews right now.
Yeah.
We train them in TxDOT.
TxDOT hires them away every time, and it's like clockwork. And so you get them trained, and TxDOT comes and takes them. Now I get to worrying about, I'm looking over there at Corey, they're going to come take his, I don't know. But we don't want that. We want the people to be able to make a living wage here. Because if we don't, then we're going to lose the ability to perform our governmental functions. And if we do that, then I think we have failed. So my recipe for success here is, let's treat our help fairly. Let's give them a living wage. Let's give them an opportunity to be able to grow in their position and know that the better they get at what they do, we'll have salary studies there to confirm it, and the better they'll be compensated. Now, if the decision is not to do that, that's the decision of this court, and the input they get back from y'all, from both the employees as well as the taxpayers and the people that are active here in the community. I'm just sounding the trumpet because I see it coming. And if we don't do something, then this is not going to do anything but get worse and eventually get to a crisis situation. And so that's the way I'm putting together my recommendation. And I get together with my smart ladies because they're really good at this. We'll crunch the numbers and come back, and I will have a recommendation along these lines ready to be submitted. What was it, August 13? Is that the new deadline I've got? To be submitted then. And then we'll be able to get that on the agenda. We'll get that planned right away so that we can deal with it. And then we'll just see where we go from there. But that's kind of where I am with my recommendation. And normally in a Commissioners Court meeting, I ask for input, but I can't do that in a workshop because those are not the rules. We don't get public input. But I've tried to give you the essential information for you to know where I'm coming from and be able to talk knowledgeably with your respective commissioners as to where they're coming from on it. So I'll just leave it at that. So I would ask the board any other observations or comments or questions that this is your opportunity to drill me, so drill.
Just one thing I want to make sure is that this year's flood has not changed any of the budget requests.
It is not.
And one thing I thought in particular was, and we need to make sure, is JP3's vehicle. I saw JP3's vehicle was on there. I want to make sure it's not the same vehicle that just got flooded out, which is going to get insurance.
He has two, he had one, a reservist, Constable.
I'm sorry, you know what I meant, yeah, Paul Gonzalez,
The one that was at the.
Constable 3. So that's not the same vehicle? That's in the request?
We've also received a grant for a new vehicle.
Right. So I remember there's a grant for a new vehicle, and he's going to get another vehicle replaced by insurance money. So are we taking that into account with that vehicle request that's on there?
I'd have to sit down.
I think he owes you, reach back on that to make sure.
That's an answer that needs to be
That's the
provided.
equipment.
It's not the vehicle itself?
Will he getting a grant? That's his equipment for his inside vehicle.
Okay.
The grant does cover some equipment, but not all of it.
Well, it's just, it's a fair question.
One small thing.
And I will get an answer to it and be able to explain it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Judge, if
Yes.
I may. Also, one step of the plan of the whirling study getting implemented is once you get your plan figured out, you would ask Sylvia and I, we would meet with the different department heads and commissioners to kind of go over what that detail would look like. So, we meet with Whirling tomorrow morning, and so hopefully after that, we'll be able to move forward with putting these dollars where Whirling suggests.
One thing I did not mention is that my proposed budget for elected officials proposes that we keep the same rate that we've been paid in the past. I'm not recommending any raises for elected officials. Okay. Thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. And thanks to Lewis and his organization for doing this. That will be posted on the website, so if you want to go back and look at any of it, you should be able to track it down. So, with that, then we stand adjourned.